I'd like to welcome you all to I think the fourth pizza pitch prep night.
It is.
That's very awesome. It's the first time actually that we had a full list, so I'm very happy with that. Also, every time we're trying to make things a little bit better. So last time we didn't have all this awesome setup. The reason we have all this stuff is that I want you guys to leave here and get like a really cool video of yourself. So if it's good enough, you're free to use it on your website or wherever you think you want to send it. If you're here to present your CV or you want to do your pitch for your new company, feel free to use the video. And and if you don't do it well this time, you can always come back next time and do it again. I'd like to start by saying that this is not a presentation course, so where you learn how to be a great presenter. So tonight, it's pretty much all about the story you write. Because that's what we've been about for the past 5 years, actually. With Funky, that's the company we started in the first place. And with Funky, we've made over 400 videos now explaining products or services or some new policy in a company. And after all those years, we thought it was time to try to teach what we learned in all that time to other people. Because it's very important to be able to tell a story about what you do. So I hope everyone's clear with that and you didn't come here with the expectations to be like an amazing presenter. There's really great people out there to do that, but tonight it's mostly about writing. Alright, so the planning for tonight is as follows. We're going to start with some pointers. I don't want to divulge too much on that. I'd like to see you guys pitch as soon as possible. During the pitching, we will record you with a camera, and after that, we will also give you some feedback on the pitch. We will send you the video afterwards. We will not make it public and share it on YouTube right away. So don't be scared about that. We will ask you for your permission first if we can share it, but we will send it to you so you can look back on how you've done, and hopefully you come back next time to make it even better. So from 7:30 till 8, you guys will be writing your scripts and hopefully eating pizza around that time. From 8 till 9, we'll do the pitching, and finally we'll finish off with some drinks and talks. So I'll tell you a little bit about why we actually started with this idea of we should help people to write their pitch. We went on a trip to San Francisco a while ago with the whole group, and in Silicon Valley we've seen some insane pitches. And what struck us the most was not that the pitches were amazingly presented, but the story behind it was really powerful. And there was one night where we saw some Dutch people pitching as well. And when you've compared it with these amazing stories that these American guys are talking about, and then suddenly you see like these really dry Dutch people stating facts about their company, you kind of wonder what went wrong. And often it's about the story. So what often happens when you start a company, there's pretty much two kinds of stories gone wrong. And I call it the escalation to bullshit. It starts either when you're a small company that has been focusing for way too long on something really technical, and you're so caught up in your specialty that you don't really realize what the people close to you, that they already don't get what you're talking about anymore. And that's a pity, because you could have an amazing story, but you simply use words that are too complicated for your audience to really get your story. And finally, there's large corporations that, through their scope, they've gotten so amazingly huge that by the time that they got to present what they do, it's so abstract and vague, and you just get these amazing Accenture slogans that tell you, I don't know, you guys know some really amazing slogans from big corporations like performance delivered, right? What's performance delivered? What are you talking about? So one of the things I want to know when I'm listening to a new product or a story about a new service is, why does it exist in the first place? What were the frustrations that led up to this story? And what went wrong? What are like the practical things that were bashed in the process of making this product? That's a story. That's something you want to listen to. Or if you're an entrepreneur, I want to know, what are all the frustrations that led you up to the idea of, hey, there's a need for a product like this? It's really annoying when you don't have a professional clicker. So actually, it's not rocket science what we do. There is actually a structure, and I'm not only talking about introduction, middle, and conclusion. Like I said, we always look for the why, and so you always should start with the situation. Who are we talking to, and what's happening to this guy, and why would he need this product in the first place? So every software company, which will probably start by talking to you by saying, okay, so we have our product will be amazing for you because it delivers, it reduces cost, it's scalable, it's flexible, it's dynamic. And if you use that by starting your pitch, you kind of already lost the most important part of your story, which is the situation. So if you, for example, have a new IT product, like a software, which is made for making reports, the best way to start your story is to say, hey dude, so yesterday I'm sure you've been making some kind of report for your company. And you've had like all these buttons that you had to like find, that you don't know where the exit button is, and it's just impossible to use, and if you have to share it with your colleagues, it's impossible, so you have to export it and send it to Dropbox and whatever. You have to find all these ways around. So that's why we created a software that helps just by doing that. And that first part with the frustrations, which can be amazing fun to tell, and it can be incredibly relatable, it's a part that is often left out because it's just not professional. It's not amazing to tell to all your friends. And so the complications are the things that are going wrong before your product even existed. The entire story that you tell can be pretty much seen in two parts. What happened before your product even existed? What did people do when your product didn't even exist yet? And then after, there is, from the answer onwards, there is the now. Now that your product exists, what do people do? How does it work? So after you said your complications, you're frustrated, you cannot share it with your friends, and it's annoying, like let's keep this amazing report-making tool. You just pretty much summarize in one sentence what the problem is. Making reports with one software sucks. And then afterwards, you simply go, introducing our amazing software that helps you make reports from many different software. And then you just go on to say, what's the explanation? How does it work? Break it up real nice and simple for your audience to understand. You state some benefits that often are going to contrast with the complications that you state in the beginning. So if one of your complications is it's impossible to share your report with all your colleagues, and one of the benefits in the end, of course, should be, and now with our software, you can share your reports with all your colleagues, and that's great. And then finally, you close off with a nice tagline that summarizes your story, preferably. It's not always wise to finish with your slogan or your company slogan, because a slogan is often over-philosophized. If Accenture would end every presentation for every new product or every new service that they're offering with their company slogan, it might often not be memorable because it's too generic. So it's nice to always have a final sentence that summarizes your entire product with all the information you just gave in one sentence. Yes, try to stay away from buzzwords. Yes?
And is the complication and the question not nearly the same?
No, because generally you can have only one problem,
yeah,
and you can have several complications. Okay. So if for example, I'm talking about yeah, I needed to give you probably a bit of a better example because I had to just make it up on the spot here. But let's say that the problem is that you have several reports. Sorry?
You can tell the Shazam story to explain.
Yeah, okay, yeah, the Shazam story, that's a good one. Shazam pretty much solves the problem of you being in a club and you want to remember that song you heard. So that's the problem. The complications can be several. The fact that you don't always have a microphone in your pocket. It could be that you don't always have somewhere to take notes, right? And
You're too drunk to remember.
You're too drunk to remember. You need something simple to just press. Exactly. Now those are things you can always play around with because there's going to be thousands of complications. But just choose the 3 most relatable ones. I generally like the number 3. I'm a very big fan of the number 3. So choose the most relatable ones, and then finally, you can summarize it to the one problem that you feel your customers will feel the most. Yes, there's also many different problems you can describe, and you can take many different angles, but it's always good to stick to one. If you pour in way too many complications or a very long situation sketch, it's just going to be impossible to focus on the one problem that is characterized by these complications. Is that an answer?
Yeah.
All right. Yes, Captain Goodhook. I once spoke to a guy in Berlin. He had a really cool startup, which is pretty much an app on your phone, which lets you turn off all notifications. Wouldn't that be great, right? You get like all these annoying, buzzy things in your pocket, and you're in the middle of a conversation, you get a phone call, and then on top of that, your mom just keeps SMSing you. You know, you would just like to turn all of that stuff off. So that's why they came up with a really cool app that is called Off Time and lets you turn everything off. Of course, you could also turn off your phone, but in this case, people can still reach you in case of emergency. But you can pretty much turn all the rest of the buzz, your WhatsApp, your bullshit. You can turn it off. So, of course, he could have told the story that I just told you with a whole bunch of frustrations, etc. But instead, what he went on talking, and this is something that they often do in TED Talks, is that they take concepts that you're familiar with, especially when you're dealing with a new product. They take it might be too technical, too difficult to explain exactly what the product is. So in this case, he just decided to say his presentation was about how social media is the new junk food of the mind. And that really kind of sticks to you, at least it stuck to me, because it really gets you thinking about the problem behind the application. That we're so addicted to our phones that we cannot stop, itching. It's like we're almost addicted to our phone. And he already says that it's bad for you because he uses the word junk food. And social media is like the entire situation that is behind his application. You could have just had a title that said, "My application silences notifications." Right? That would have also worked, and it would have been true. But this makes for a very compelling story. There's several kinds of story, and there's all kinds of good stories. We like some point we have the personal product narrative. I like this one a lot, perhaps because I started a company myself. But this is generally a story that entrepreneurs will tell you. How they came up with the product in the first place. What were the frustrations that led them up to this adventurous thing of starting a company? And we all like the story of an adventure and with the main character that goes through all this shit, right? And that creates extra context and you'll have people's attention. And by the time they get to actually talking what the product is about, they will just be full ears. They will be full on listening to you. So if you would look, for example, at Shazam, this guy will just talk about, he was like in a club, hanging out with some chicks, and then at some point he just heard this music on the background, and he was like, damn it, I don't have a notepad with me, I'm kind of drunk, I can't remember, Wouldn't it be great if I would have had an app to record that song? Then there's also, of course, the salesman. If you're not the guy that founded the company, you can not always be acting as if you're the guy that founded it. At some point, people will find out that you're not Mark Zuckerberg. So you can also just talk about it in a way that salesmen will often use, only focusing on the complication. So saying, have you ever noticed how umbrellas suck? I mean, you go outside, they get wet, then you go inside and your floor is wet, and if you're a bit unlucky, you'll slip and you'll break your back. And they break all the time, you know. So that's why we came up with Sense umbrellas. Sense umbrellas is really great because it doesn't break. You can go against the wind, etc. And then finally, there's metaphors, and that's something you should be a little bit careful with, because if you don't use a metaphor correctly, people are just gonna not get what you're talking about at all. So this is a conscious choice. If you believe that you have a pretty clear story to tell and you can tell it without diverging too much from your story, use that. So in the case of, for example, Shazam, he's just saying, I was in a club and I came up with the idea. The complication is I didn't have the notepad. And so it would be awesome if I could have just had it straight away. Of course, you can have these major metaphorical things, like the guy with the social media is the new junk food of the mind. But if you just miss the right metaphor, people will just be clueless about what you're talking about. I generally advise using metaphors if you're not really amazing with coming up with really cool stories like that. Only use them if your job or the thing you're describing is really difficult and abstract. You often see that with politicians. Politicians will only talk in metaphors because everything they talk about is way too difficult to simply put in words. I mean, if they're going to describe every part of the economy, it's going to be like a 90-day presentation probably. In a metaphor, it's important that you pretty much stick to the elements that you name in your metaphor, and then afterwards you have them come back when you start describing what your product is about. So for example, social media, you will often, well, social media is not a very good example. Does someone have a nice example of a metaphor which really explains something very complicated?
You have the hypophysis, I don't know how it's called in English actually, but the part in your brain that controls every organ. So doctors call it the dirigent, I don't know what it's called in English. Conductor, or the chief of your body.
Yeah.
So that's how they explain it to kids.
Oh yeah, that's a good example.
So,
now why would that work?
Well, so the like a conductor. Oh no, a conductor is that of the orchestra.
Yeah.
A conductor. So like a conductor, once a violinist or the bass player gets lazy, he just gets more aggressive and he gets more like, oh, start playing faster or something like that. And once that's fine, he doesn't pay much attention, he just focuses on the whole orchestra again. And just like that part of your brain, once he notices that an organ is going slowly or not producing very well, he sends more signals to get it more activated again.
Yes. So the hypophysis.
I don't know how it's called.
Hypophysis.
Hypophysis. For all of you Dutch people out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the reason you do that is to link every element that you name in the story before to the real thing. So we're talking about a part of the brain, and at the same time there's organs, and all the organs are very different, and if they don't move all in symphony, things are going to get messed up, right? That's pretty much the story. Now if you translate that to the real thing you want to explain, there's or to the metaphor, if we connect it to the metaphor, the brain is the orchestrator. Hello. The orchestra is composed of many different musicians that have all different instruments, different sizes, and if they don't work all well together, things are going to get messed up, or it's just not going to be pretty. And then I have to find my mouse. I should really get a clicker. Oh, I think that's it. All right. Now, before we go on, I would like to know, are there any other questions that you guys have about the structure of a story?
I don't have a product.
Yeah, okay, that's a very good one.
Yeah.
So, okay, so in the next hour, you guys are going to be writing your scripts.
We can fix this.
I think it's a good idea. on your tables there are papers with the structures written on it. I don't know if everyone has pens. Yes, there's a whole bunch of pens here. So you can just write down your story in that. You can pretty much write about anything you want. Even if you came here without a product or without a service that exists yet, you could also, for example, pose as the CEO of Spotify pitching for his first time. Just to practice the skill of seeing how can I write a kick-ass story out of this.
Can we do our CV?
You can also do your CV. Actually, last time, Angelique, that's your name, right?
Yeah,
Angelique?
yes.
She was here pitching herself to her potential employer, and she did a really kick-ass job presenting herself just by describing what are the things that make you awesome, right? And what are the complications that your employer currently is incurring? So without people like you, what would be the complications that they would be enduring? So that's the before scenario. Before you got to the company, what were problems they were having? Angelique, what were the complications that you highlighted last time?
During my pitch?
Yes.
Well, I had a complicated story, and so it's really difficult to put a complicated story in a short story. So you have to point out the most important aspects and stick to the points that he mentions. So
The three were, you knew the countries well, was one thing. They don't always know the country, remember?
the research, that they didn't have research.
They didn't have
Like I had to demonstrate what are my qualities that certain organizations need, so that I am interesting for them to hire.
Yeah. So she is you're a supply chain researcher for sustainable companies. I don't remember exactly. How do I call that?
Well, that doesn't really have a name. I just did research about that.
Yeah.
And for the European Union, and I did my thesis on that. So there are several like government institutions or international organizations that might be interested in my knowledge.
Yes. So she was applying to an NGO that was working with supply chains of fruit and fruit. I think let's say bananas, right?
Yeah.
And one of the problems that this company has is that without people like her, there's not enough research done on how to transport or how to get, I think, from all these small little farms, how to collect it properly and get it all the way to the other part of the world without making, costs skyrocket. I'm making things up along the way. It could be I'm a little bit wrong. But without her, all these complications occur, and eventually that will cost the company a lot of money because they get fines, because they might have to get into corruption, they don't know how to avoid it. And then afterwards, she comes in as the magical solution. Fortunately, I'm there. I wrote already a couple of researches for the European Union. Here you just start stating your experiences. I'm specialized in, you're specialized in amazing things. Specialized in bananas, and and that's why you should hire me. You need me, right? And that's how you can also make a CV fit to that story. So it could be about a CV, it could be a story about, I don't know, why do we use raining cats and dogs as a, I learned recently it's not
Idiom.
a proverb, as an idiom. Yes. We made a video actually recently about why do we use why we use it's raining cats and dogs, and we had an amazing story and an entire theory behind it, and then afterwards we posted it and we shared it with people that we thought would really love it, which unfortunately were teachers. And like 3 seconds later we got like comments saying, guys, this is not a proverb, it's an idiom, you idiots, and I was so happy because I had a really great catchy tune in there, which was this is Proverbs explained, and unfortunately it was an idiom. So now we decided we're going to make an animation explaining the difference between idioms and proverbs. So that we thought that would be fitting. All right, guys, Is there any other questions for what you have to do?
How long it should be?
How long? 200 words. That's really, no, actually a little bit less, 180.
150 I read, and 60 seconds.
Yeah, 160, 150 words. That's the right amount.
And how long is it? 1 minute?
That's 1 minute. Yeah, so there's going to be a counter, like up, where is it?
To
Vincent?
the right.
To the right? Yes, to the right, which you'll also see on the screen. So I've kind of been cheating. I've been pretty much looking at everything I was saying. But you're going to see the timer there as well. And you'll see also when you run out of time. So try to make it fit to that. There's a couple of people around here that can also help you if you get stuck in your story and you want some help, or you don't know situation, what do I have to do with that? I cannot come up with any insanely great stories. We can maybe help you with a nice hook. So we're around here. Gonne is really experienced at writing stories. I am experienced at writing stories. And where is Marijn? And Valeska is insanely experienced in German writing stories in German. She will also be able to help you in English. Oh yeah, you can do it in any language you want. Dutch, English,
German.
Jamaican, French.
We
Preferably not German.
yeah, or French.
Hey.
Yeah,
Or
we don't like.
Jamaican. So let's keep it to
And
Dutch
it's not
and
any
English.
language we want.
Yes,
And it's 1 minute.
it's 1 minute, 60 seconds. Yes, anything else?
What's the tagline?
A tagline. It's like a slogan. So it's a short sentence that summarizes a product. Sometimes they get interchanged, but I always like to use a tagline as something that summarizes the whole story. So, for example, there it says behind Julius, it says funky animated explanation videos, right? So it's animated videos that explain something. I could also have said what was our previous slogan. What was it? Big ideas.
Simply explain.
Yeah, but that was already. Yeah, big idea simply explained. It's already more vague. You know, it doesn't really say what we sell,
Which is animation.
which is animation. And for the people that don't get what an animation is, it's videos.
Okay, but it just says what you do.
Yeah. That's like something I prefer to use. If you close off with something really philosophical, big ideas in simple words. That was the previous one. Big ideas in simple words.
Seriously?
Yes, it's a terrible slogan.
No, but I was looking at the pitchy. The pitchy also has a.
Awesome elevator pitch trainings.
Yeah, that's kind of clear, right?
Yeah, so big ideas in simple words doesn't really say what we do, right?
Oh, like essential.
Accenture, right? Performance delivered. What is, if I tell you I do performance delivered, what do you think I do? I could be a hooker, I could be, I could be many things.
But it doesn't, because it says it's a summary.
Yeah.
It doesn't go back to the problem, to the answer.
No,
It just
no.
says what explains.
Yeah.
It only refers back to your solution.
Look, you can also say sense umbrellas. You know what sense umbrellas is?
I have it. You
Yeah,
want
it's
to see it?
the super,
Yeah, what is it?
super duper umbrella.
Super duper strong umbrella, right? But that could be their tagline. Sense umbrellas. Super duper strong umbrellas. Right?
Yeah, okay, catchy.
It's even catchy, they should use that. Yeah, but that
Okay.
I will
The
tweak
tagline
them.
is enjoy the weather.
Yeah, enjoy the weather, which could be like your newspaper about weather.
7 years of bad luck.
Yeah, but the reason why they say enjoy your weather is because they give themselves space to do other weather products.
Yeah,
It's a bigger plan.
exactly. And that's why it's a philosophy, right? But if you're talking specifically about this umbrella for the first time, I think it would be simply better to just say super duper strong umbrellas, right?
No, it was.
Because the people that were at your presentation will take that and be like, sense umbrella. Oh yeah, they make like super duper strong umbrellas. Like they just never break. Like, you know, if you go at 900 kilometers an hour wind, it will still not break.
So, how do
Mine's
people
broken.
end the...
Uh,
This was it, or that was my last word.
You don't have that much time.
How do you do that? I find that the most difficult part.
Well, Alex,
Can you give us an example?
you can end with an action. You can end with something that you want from your audience. You can end like with, so go to my site or contact me or You don't always
Give
have
me
to,
money.
because we're used to working with taglines because it works very well in animation,
Yeah.
but also because you're giving the pitch presentation to your audience directly because they're standing in front of you. You can just directly talk to them. So like, okay, this is my story. If you want to get to work with me, just come talk to me. I'm around here all night, or come to my website, or ask whatever you want them to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Or you
that's
can
something-
even link it.
Cool.
So if you are tired, like
Yes.
me, of umbrellas that break,
That would
get a
be
super
shorter
duper
to
strong
say.
umbrella on my website,
Yeah, I know, but I cannot fix
www.sensumbrellas.com.
Yes, thank you very much. Okay.
All right.
Good.
I think we
Maybe
can.
just one,
yes.
because the project I will be doing is kind of complicated. So normally I would make, write the story for the people that already know,
Mhm.
the background information. But that's part of what you said would be kind of the recipe for bullshit. But it should be that simply explained that also people that don't know anything about it
Yeah.
should understand it, or do I? Well,
Well,
write it
look,
for-
if you have an insanely specific audience, then yes, of course, you can escalate your terminology. It all depends. Like if you're talking to programmers, if I'm a programmer talking to a whole bunch of programmers, and I'm talking about beautiful code, and all these amazing things that programmers say, yeah, look, dude, that code is like really beautiful, and it's like insanely scalable, and I really love it, Probably you're just gonna talk about relatable complications for all these other programmers that want to learn how you did that amazing thing with your site, man. That's the kind of thing that you're gonna be. Yeah, I've met like way too many of those guys. But yeah, but if you know that there's a chance that there's 20% people in the audience that will just never understand those 3 words you use, you're gonna lose them. So you might as well make it a little simpler, and yeah, at least everyone will understand.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, that's it. Yes, let's turn on some music and write some
Thank you.
pitches and eat some pizza and beer. Drink beer.